Well, good evening, everyone. Welcome to this, a week late, this live chat from For Britain, or for Britain. I wasn't here last week, unfortunately, as I was sick. The first thing I would do is ask people to share. I keep being reminded that I'm not asking enough to share this, so please do. Couple of things. I'll start first by talking about For Britain and the current position. And I know that things have been somewhat difficult over the past few weeks. But while last week was in some ways a difficult week, and actually it's turned out for the best. So we have, as of last week, a whole new team looking after the website, and the website you will see some dramatic changes in the website over the next couple of weeks. The joining up process will be made easier, and a lot of the things that we had planned, like the members forum and various other things, will be updated and improved. So we have a whole new team looking after that. If you've been trying to contact us and you haven't received a reply, then please be patient with us. We will get back to you. The fact of the matter is we're completely overwhelmed. We have now passed the 2,000 mark, which I had optimistically hoped we would reach by Christmas. We have now surpassed that. 2014 is the figure I was given today. So I am absolutely filled with optimism. But as I say, we've been pretty much overwhelmed. But we've also seen how big the potential for this is. Even I am surprised by the support that is coming in, by the emails of support, by all sorts of messages coming from all over the country. I've been surprised by it. I've been completely, pleasantly surprised by it. But we are upping our game to deal with it. We not only have a new team looking after the website, but we have a new secretary in the party who will be dealing with all the correspondence. And this will hopefully speed things up for people who have had delays getting replies from us. So rest assured, our membership is growing daily. We are we're ahead of what we hoped we would be at this point. And we have brought in lots of new people to sort out the problems that we've had, to improve things, and to make the whole thing run more efficiently. So I know I keep asking this, but please bear with us, and especially our supporters, because this is for real. This is for real. We don't have, as I've said before, we don't have all these huge financial backers. We are a growing but small team of very passionate people, and we will succeed. And I noticed that we are being attacked more and more and more. And this is a really good sign. I take this as a really big compliment, because if people were ignoring us, this would be our death knell. But actually, the criticism is coming in from all sides. And once again, Hope Not Hate have produced another silly little report condemning me. And recently, Nick Griffin produced another silly little report condemning me. So if I'm being condemned by all of those sides, by the hard left and the hard right, then I know that we're in the right place. And I keep saying to people, and I mean it, that this party is not going to be about left or right, or about isms or ifs or isations. It's going to be a common sense, truthful party for the British people. We're not extremes on any part of the political scale. We just want to change things. We want things to be different. We want to tell the truth and see what happens. That is the philosophy of this party. is simply to tell the truth, to find that that honest middle ground that most people want to stand on and that most people do stand on. And mainstream politics is not on the middle ground, it's on the left. I mean, even the Conservatives are on the left, because it's all mass migration, it's all Islam is peace, it's all completely ignoring the mess that the public sector is in, and the judiciary and the judicial system and policing and the NHS. They completely ignore the real problems and come out with the usual sound bites. So that's why we're different. We are facing a lot of odds. We are working against a lot of odds. We have, of course, the mainstream media and mainstream politicians against us. It's a huge fight, but it's one we will win. And it's one we will win because we're telling the truth and because we're defending a great country by using its freedoms and its values to defend just those freedoms. With regard to the growth of the party, dozens of branches are being formed every day. Again, we're struggling to keep up with it. So again, we've expanded the team that is looking after the forming of branches. We have a new branch formed in London, for example, which launched last week. This will obviously be a key one. There'll be a lot of elections in London, a lot of media interest in London, and we have a fantastic team as of next week in place to look after that. But the big cities, we have branches springing up all over the place. And as I said in a tweet recently, that we now have them in England, Scotland, Wales, and Northern Ireland, and it's exploding in growth. I'm so positive about it all. A couple of things I also, of course, need to mention since the last time that I spoke on this live stream. Two fantastic events, two fantastic fundraising events we've had since then. One in Pontefract and one in Milton Keynes. Huge turnout to both. Enthusiastic again. Lots of money raised. Lots of new people to add to the team. So once again, we are growing and growing and growing. Now, there have been a couple of things going around today about the Electoral Commission. So let me clear that up once and for all. We have not been rejected by the Electoral Commission. What they are saying to us is that we must register under either the Movement for Britain or the For Britain movement, rather than just For Britain itself. Now, we actually disagree with the reasoning that the Electoral Commission has given us for this. They've told us that the name For Britain is too likely to be confused with a slogan registered, not a party name, but a slogan or description, as they're called, registered by a group based in Scotland called Britannica. Now, whilst I don't see how, the slogan that they mention is For a United Britain. And this is a description that this party has apparently registered. I can find no record of them using it, but that's their response to us anyway. So what needs to happen now is simply that we register under either the For Britain movement or the Movement for Britain. This will change nothing at all about our logos, the social pages. We will still, as we are at the moment, running as For Plymouth, for example, For London, For Manchester. All of that will continue exactly as it is. Just our formal name will have the Movement for Britain or the For Britain movement, whichever one it ends up to be. So that should I'm not concerned about it at all. What it will do is probably set us back by about a month or so in terms of standing for elections. But at the same time, we didn't intend to stand anybody for elections until May 2018. So we still have no issues with this. We still fully intend to stand people in local elections in May 2018. And just to be clear on something, by the way, if there are problems with the Electoral Commission who continue to allow us to register, we still can stand as independents. And we will. And if we were to win seats as independents, we can still sit as a For Britain party. So the only sort of obstacle, if you like, is what will be written on the ballot paper. So this is what we're talking to the Electoral Commission about. None of this needs to be completed until 30 days before we intend to stand for election. So it's not the major difficulty it's been made out to be. I'm not concerned about it. So we shall carry on. We shall resubmit the new name. We shall have a new website, and we shall effectively relaunch the party at the beginning of next year. With what we intended to do was to relaunch it with a local manifesto ready for the May 2018 elections. So that's that part covered. As I say, it's not something I'm overly concerned about, or concerned about at all, in fact. And regardless of the Electoral Commission, we will be standing candidates in May 2018 and beyond. And speaking of candidates, lots and lots of interest as well from people all over the country wanting to stand for us. So we are going to have no shortage of people to put forward in the 2018 elections in May, irrespective of what happens with the Electoral Commission. But to be fair, I don't actually expect more problems with them, she says, hopefully. What will happen now is we will sort out the website issues and other issues, just formalities and basic things that need to be done. And I won't deny that I think initially we somewhat weren't prepared. We weren't ready for the size, for the influx, and ready for how difficult it was going to be. But we are ready now. We're getting, as I say, much bigger. And we will be ready to start our weekly public meetings across the country in January. And the first public meeting we have planned is in Plymouth. And the date I have penciled in for that is the 23rd of January. That we are starting in Plymouth because For Plymouth was the first For Britain branch to be set up. So we'll be starting there. We will leaflet the area. We will leaflet areas where on past form and past election form we think we might have a chance of doing well. We already have some great people in Plymouth ready to stand in the elections down there in May, who have written a fantastic local manifesto. And this is how it's going to work. We are going to ask local branches who have seats up in May 2018 to write some local elections so that it is in tune with local people. Obviously those policies will be in tune with our overall beliefs and our priorities as a party, but that is how it will work. So I am keen to make, for local members, to make these branches grow, to find some great candidates, which I know we will, because great people are already stepping forward, and we will have leafleting of these areas. I will then hold a public meeting there. I and our chosen candidates will give speeches there. We will invite local media. If they want to come, they can. If not, we will go straight to the people and we will tell them, we will introduce ourselves on the doorstep and via the letterbox. So we are not entirely dependent on the mainstream media. And speaking of which, you might have seen that I sent out on Twitter an article from the Milton Keynes Citizen. Now this I read on my way to our fundraiser in Milton Keynes on Saturday. Utterly disgraceful article. Racist far right, this and that, plastered all over it, telling us that we are a far right secret organisation. Now, we hold our meetings in secret for a specific reason. And the reason we hold our meetings in secret is because we are threatened and the venues are threatened. This has happened to me several times before. For example, when I launched my leadership campaign in Rotherham, I had initially booked a venue, and leftist activists, Antifa, decided to intimidate this venue, as they do, and it's happened several times. They'll phone up and say, you're hosting far-right fascists and all the rest of it, and threaten to turn up on the day and ruin things. And this, of course, frightens venues into cancelling. And it happened again recently with Tommy Robinson and his book signing in Manchester, which went ahead in the centre of Manchester, and a long, long queue of people wanting to read Tommy's book. So these things are starting to backfire, and they should backfire. But just as a quick note to the Milton Keynes citizen, we have to hold our meetings in secret, and that is a sign of the times that we live in, because we use our freedom of speech and our democratic rights to criticize a religion, among many other things, but of course that's what they're attacking us for. To criticize a religion does not give you or anyone else license to call us racists and far right. And it is newspapers like the Milton Keynes Citizen who make it dangerous for us. They are, in effect, perhaps inciting violence against us. If and when people on our side are physically attacked, and it does happen, the newspapers have a part to play in this. They are lying. They are stirring up this nonsense and prompting and promoting the thugs that are often associated with these Antifa groups. And I hear there were about 10 of them protesting in Milton Keynes this weekend. Well, protest away, but we will continue to hold our meetings in secret if needed. And the fact that we have to hold them in secret tells us all we need to know about the state of democracy in this country. And that state is largely because of the media and people like the Milton Keynes Citizen. So it's your fault we have to meet in secret, mainstream media. So please don't then smear us as secretive organizations when you are the ones causing us to hold our events in secret places in the first place. So I am coming into this new week. It's a whole new fresh start, and I am actually what seemed like difficulties last week with discovering several difficulties with the website, and of course this nonsense with the Electoral Commission. What seems like a difficulty is actually a chance for a brand new fresh start and a brand new team, and to finally get things out of the way with the Electoral Commission, who I will be watching very closely and in communication with for the next month, so that any any potential problems they raise can be dealt with straight away without dragging on. So we don't need any further delays with this. So that's an update essentially on the party. I consider that things are going really, really well. There are obstacles, but we're overcoming them. And every obstacle we overcome, we get better, we learn more, and we grow bigger. And we will continue to do this. I'm going to remind you again, as I've just been prompted to share this. If you have any questions, do pop them through, because I can see the questions coming up. So do pop them through. But a couple of things I've got over here that I wanted us to go through. Oh, I also wanted to mention that I was surprised to learn this week on Twitter that Paul Weston has decided to essentially close down Liberty GB and join For Britain. I'm delighted with that. It's a very gracious and very decent thing for Paul to do, and I'm very grateful that he's done it. And he's also encouraging other people, other members of Liberty GB, to join, and I'm also really grateful for that, because we have a very special message here, and we have a very specific message here, and we can and will get that message out to the public. And as Paul said in his video, timing is right. Timing is everything, and the timing for us is now. And as with everything in life, as time goes on, we will respond to what we need to respond to at the time. And as things change and as things grow and develop in terms of what happens politically, as the obvious betrayal of Brexit, for example, becomes more and more apparent, as the immigration continues, as the public sector continues to be a money-wasting mess, people will realise that what they're looking for is straight down the line, honest, plain speaking, and people who really care about this country. If we haven't had the perfect first month, then so be it. We have years to go. And in a month or so's time, none of these initial difficulties will matter to us anyway, because we'll be too busy campaigning for this country. A couple of things that I wanted to take you through, which have caught my eye today. And the first one, which I'm sure a lot of you have had a lot of interest in today, is this £50 billion, potentially £50 billion. I'm just looking over at some articles over here. Potentially €50 billion, £44 billion divorce bill that we're going to, are likely to be going to pay to get out of the European Union. Now, what jumps out at me as I read the articles about this that I've read today is how completely vague it all is. The language the politicians are using is might be this and could be that, and we'll progress after this and we'll progress after that. And it's more and more talks about more and more talks. It's also completely vague for two reasons. One, they don't want to give us any straight answers. And two, they're trying to continue the pretense that this is enormously difficult and complex. It isn't enormously difficult and complex. So here's another idea, an alternative to this charade that is currently going on, this stage show that the politicians, both in the UK and the EU, are putting on for us. Of course, as I've said many times, in an attempt to drag this thing out for as long as they possibly can, in time for them to work behind the scenes and in plain sight, frankly, for that second referendum that so many of them want. I posted the most brilliant Pat Condell video on Twitter today, and I'll repost it again after this, but it describes the EU so perfectly. They do not want to let the UK go. It is an enormous cash cow for them for a start. But they also don't want to let the UK go because they want to set an example. This must serve as a warning to all the other member states of, you ain't getting out of this. And if you try, we will make it as difficult as possible. So here's an alternative. Here's our alternative. Repeal the European Communities Act with a European Communities Act repeal bill. What this will do is bring sovereignty back to the UK Parliament and put the UK in the driving seat when it comes to leaving the European Union. The UK will decide how, when it leaves the European Union. The power will be in our hands if we just repeal the European Communities Act. Now, that will be chaos, you might think. No, it wouldn't. If we leave it, that the directives and regulations and laws that, by the way, are still being made and still being passed into UK law, even post-referendum, EU laws are still being imposed upon us as they always were. We can leave them in place and then, as a sovereign UK Parliament, either amend or replace is the word I'm looking for. Either amend or replace those laws in accordance with the wishes of the UK's Parliament. Trade deals we will make, and we will make with the knowledge of our own bargaining power. You know, trade should actually be carried out between businesses. And this excessive interference by states in trade deals is completely unnecessary in the first place. All the governments of any country have to do is give us tariff-free, and set some tax rules. That's it. We can still have a tariff-free relationship with the European Union if there is will on either and both sides to do so. This is what we need. We need to withdraw by repealing the European Communities Act, place the power in our own hands, and trade knowing that the European Union and its businesses need trade with us every bit as much as we need trade with them. Businesses should trade with as little and as few regulations as possible. This is how economies grow, and this is how trade deals are made and should be made. So all this difficulty being placed in our way is all charade politics. It's nonsense. It's designed to keep us in the EU and to serve as a warning to other people who may be tempted to leave. This is not the EU's way. It is a bully. We know it's a bully, and the more this charade carries on, the happier I and many other people are that we voted to get out of it. Now it's just a matter of holding them to account, which will be a very difficult thing to do because they don't want to be held to account. As Pat Condell described it so brilliantly today, they want to remove the people from the governing process. All of them, the career politicians in this and every other member state, want to remove the people from the governing process. That's the extent, that's the size of the fight. But we have to change how this is talked about. We need to change our message on this. And I'm simply not hearing enough of Pat Condell-like criticism and reality, the real descriptions of what this monster really is. Only that will spur public opinion, and only public opinion will really get us out of this thing. A second article I saw today, which I found actually quite amusing. I did, and this is, and I'm sure some of you have been watching this today as well. And this is the Donald Trump retweets the far right. Now, I've got the BBC article in front of me. First of all, you would think he had murdered someone. It was breaking news all over all the big websites. Breaking news, Donald Trump retweets something that we disapprove of. It's absolutely absurd. So let me just read a little bit from what the BBC have said about this. And it's their breaking news, of course. Front page, breaking news. Catastrophe has struck. Donald Trump has retweeted 3 inflammatory videos from a British far-right group. The first tweet from Jada Franson, the deputy leader of Britain First, claims to show a Muslim migrant attacking a man on crutches. This was followed by 2 more videos of people Miss Franson claims to be Muslim. Responding to Mr. Trump's posts, UK Prime Minister Theresa May's official spokesman said it was wrong for the president to have done this. Now, down further through the article, and I've sent this out on Twitter and I will again, the BBC have decided to quote the Muslim Council of Britain, to bring in the Muslim Council of Britain to condemn Donald Trump. Now, I know the Muslim Council of Britain of old, and I know the kind of people who are involved in it and who have been involved in it. The current Deputy Secretary General, if you look on their website, is a guy called Omar El Hamdoun. And I, some years ago, along with Mariam Namazi, debated him at an event in the House of Commons. And Mariam, to her credit, forced him to admit that in his ideal Islamic state, that women should be stoned to death for adultery. And over the years, several people like Suhaib Hassan, who tells us that stoning will turn Britain into a haven of peace, and this is something they want to offer to Britain. He's also been recorded secretly by Channel 4 calling for jihad against the non-Muslims. And several other figures, notorious Islamist and jihadi figures, have been in senior roles, and many still are in senior roles in the Muslim Council of Britain. The BBC somehow thinks that these people are better than Donald Trump. Somehow they are more in tune with morality. They are a greater and more respectable spokesperson than the President of the United States. For them to drag these people out to condemn Donald Trump, a man who I don't believe has ever expressed belief or a desire for people to be stoned to death, is it's so despicably typical of the BBC and indeed the entire mainstream media. Criticising these monsters and their monstrous beliefs is worse to the BBC than the monstrous beliefs themselves and the monsters who hold them. This is the back to front, down is the new up society we are living in. The evil are presented as the good, and the good, certainly in this aspect, because Donald Trump opposes these people, is presented as the evil. And talk about a coup for Britain First. I'm sure many people who've never heard of Britain First will now be logging on and finding out whatever they can about them. So well done, BBC, and well done, world media, because I doubt very much you set out to do this, but you have just given a massive publicity boost to Britain First, as well as revealing yourselves as the duplicitous hypocrites and morally bankrupt liars and smearers that you actually are. Again, this is really rather typical. I wanted to mention as well another article that has caught my eye today is from The Independent. Now, while we're setting ourselves up to pay £44 billion to the European Union for absolutely nothing, and while we're spending millions a year on foreign aid, The Independent tells us today that 1 in 10 London families are relying on charity handouts to eat, and that food banks are facing unprecedented strain in the run-up to Christmas. 1 in 4 London parents worry about being able to afford to feed their children. Now, the state that this country is in is reflected right there. Once again, and as usual, the normal, everyday British people are at the bottom of the pile. Once again, we have no intention, there is no political will whatsoever to prioritise the 1 in 10 London families who are living with help from food banks. There are nurses in this country, professionals working in the NHS, working God knows what kind of hours, who are also dependent on food banks. And the reason for this, the many reasons for this, is that the cost of living is simply exploding. And it's exploding for a lot of reasons. Housing, the cost of housing is exploding for a lot of reasons. Yes, there is a housing shortage in this country, but the crisis isn't necessarily, or at least not overwhelmingly, caused by a shortage. It is caused by a population crisis. There are simply too many people in this country, and there are too many people coming into this country. Now, I know that the loony left loves to jump up and down and ignore logic and ignore reason and ignore just basic numeracy and thinks that 1 million people is no different to 10,000 people. So what's the difference? Well, there's a huge difference. 1 million new people means 1 million new people needing somewhere to live. 1 million new people needing a job, 1 million new people needing school places. All of these things are hugely affected. And what happens when you have an oversupply looking for housing and an undersupply of houses being built? It's quite obvious to anyone that housing costs go up and up and up. Young people I feel sorry for young people these days. I would hate to be 20 or 21 nowadays. I think I was among the last generation actually that could afford to buy a modest house. But young people today can't even afford to rent in many cases. And you'll often see a couple of professionals who can't afford to buy a house either. Renting is sky high. So how are people supposed to live? Where is the priority for this? Why aren't we talking about the fact that rents are so high that working people either having to claim in work benefits or are short of money to feed their own families? When we say that people are using food banks, we don't necessarily mean people on welfare. We mean working people. This is not a functioning society. This is not a society that is functioning well. And it's not a government either that pays millions, if not billions, abroad while ignoring the plight of its own working people at home. This has got to stop. I say keep that 44 billion people and start putting it in to improving life for working people in this country. You can start by putting in place the infrastructure that this massive overpopulation that you invited needs. Where are the roads? Where are the doctor surgeries? Where are the car parks even? There's simply no room or ability infrastructure-wise to sustain this. So if you must spend 44 billion, start spending it on the doctor surgeries and the roads and the housing that you need to house all these people you have brought here and continue to bring here. And when you've done that, put some into the police force. We are decimating the police. Now, this doesn't excuse them, of course, for prioritizing Twitter over burglary or assault. They still have some officers and they still have some money, and they are deciding, like the government, to prioritize trendy diversity schemes rather than looking after the people of this country. People are tired of it. So take that 44 billion and give some of it to the police. When you've done that, sort out the police and make them prioritize. But the long-term key to all of this has got to be immigration. It's immigration, immigration, immigration. It has to stop. We are importing a city the size of Coventry every year. I've read another report saying we are importing a city the size of Birmingham every 36 months. This is not sustainable, and everyone with half a brain knows it. The competition for jobs that this presents. This is another reason why people are so poor in this country. This is another reason why working people are having to rely on food banks, because there is so much competition for jobs that wages are either stagnating or going down. This, again, for those of us with half a brain, we know that oversupply of labour means reduction in wages, and don't the big companies just love it? They are strangling small business. The EU strangles small business, making it nigh on impossible for them to compete with big business. And the little people at the bottom are trampled on and hit a brick wall at every turn. This is our priority. The British government must start prioritising the British people. It is absolutely unacceptable, and we are tired of it, and many people are tired of it. A further article that I read today was about Jews leaving Germany. Jews are leaving Germany in numbers not seen since the rise of the Nazis. And they are not leaving Germany, and this is on top of something else I spoke about, I think on a webcast a couple of weeks ago, that 10,000 Jews have left France in 2015 alone. Now, this is being caused not by a resurgence of the so-called far right. This is not being caused, by the way, by me or by For Britain or by any of our supporters. It is being caused by a massive increase across Germany of Muslim immigrants attacking Jews, and also it's a growing trend in Germany for Jews not to wear visible symbols which will identify them as Jews. Now, am I the only one who sees a worrying trend here? I read recently as well, and I also tweeted about it, about a synagogue in Wuppertal in Germany. Now, the Nazis set fire to the synagogue in that city back in the 1930s. And in 2015, it was set fire to again, this time by Muslims. Now, they walked out of court free because the court accepted that this was a legitimate protest against Israeli actions and in the Israel-Palestinian conflict. Am I the only one who sees a worrying trend here? Am I the only one who worries about seeing rising anti-Semitism in Germany, and that the fact that this is effectively ignored by the media, ignored certainly by the German government, and that their courts are allowing these people to go free on the grounds that they had a legitimate protest against Israel? I am really concerned about this. This is a very dark road that Germany is going down. And it's a road that Germany has gone down before. And I don't see this ending very well. It is, of course, goes back to the crazy and lunatic decision by Angela Merkel to open the borders of Germany back in 2015. And she did this, interestingly, without any consultation with the European Union. Of course, Angela Merkel is in love with the EU, wedded to the EU. But for some reason on this decision, and the decision to open Europe, effectively, not just open Germany, but open Europe, up to millions of migrants, she seems to have taken of her own accord. Now, I've been criticised today for being a single issue politician. And once again, this is just another smear, and I'm used to smears, and this is just another one. But as we know, or if you've paid any attention to me during the UKIP leadership election and beyond, I had by far the widest range of policies of any of the candidates, but I was still labelled a single issue candidate, and it's still happening today. But let me address it. First of all, I'm not single issue. This is perfectly clear. Secondly, I do talk a great deal about Islam, and there are a few reasons for this, and one of them is because mainstream politics won't talk about it, and even some apparently anti-establishment politicians won't talk about it. So this is a primary reason. This is number one. Number two is it's being lied about all the time. The media churns out on a daily basis lies, and more lies about the situation in Europe, about the rape epidemic, for example, and I believe even about some jihadi-inspired murders. I don't believe that every individual murder by someone shouting Allahu Akbar is actually showing up in the news. So while this may be a single issue, it is an existential issue. And that's the point. There's little point, there's little merit almost in us making decisions on things like housing and education and the NHS and welfare and other policies, if our entire society is being destroyed and ripped out from under our feet. It's not about being a single issue. It's about recognizing the most important issue and having the guts to face up to it. That is what we are doing. That will be and is whether people in the party like it or not, and I know some people don't like it, but it will be our unique selling point as a party. And there is very little point in us having these fantastic policies on all issues, which we will have and which I have had in the past, if people are not hearing them. The media attention I got, again throughout the leadership campaign, which I am myself getting tired of talking about, but it is relevant. The media attention that I got far surpassed others. And that is, again, because we were talking about this issue. It is the issue that will bring the people to For Britain. And it's the issue that will attract people from all walks of life. It will attract people. I've even had someone from the Green Party join up this week. The party is attracting people from Labour, from the Conservatives. I don't know if we've had a Lib Dem yet, but we have had a Green, which really surprised me. But the point is, you can smear us a single issue if you want to. A, we're not. And B, we are going to take on this enormous issue because no one else has the guts to. We know this issue, we'll tell the truth about this issue, and that is what will get the British people behind us. Then they will learn about our other fantastic common sense policies, and then we will grow, and we will grow, and we will grow. I've got about 15 minutes left, so if you do have any questions, do send them in to me. But I want to talk a little bit more about some of the things I did over the weekend. I was in my sickbed for late last week, including in Milton Keynes, I'm afraid to say. But on Sunday, I went to Blackburn, and we had a meeting there of a ex-Muslim group, which is being set up by one of our committee, a fantastic woman, herself an ex-Muslim, and who has been through a Sharia marriage in Britain, and has personal experience of exactly how appalling these places are. And it prompted her, and her experiences of being in a controlling Sharia marriage are a huge asset to us. But we have a growing number of ex-Muslims joining the party, including Mufassal, who I have tweeted about earlier this week, and I again will send out his very warm, very supportive message of the party. Now, I think that ex-Muslims are absolutely key in all of this, and they're key in all of this for several reasons. One is that a few of us in For Britain know what it's like to be a British Muslim, and know what it's like to grow up within these sort of insular communities within the UK, and we know that they are self-governing communities in the UK, and that family life in particular is governed almost entirely by Sharia law. Staggering statistics, for example, about marriage outside of English law, and the last statistic I saw on this, at least the last relatively reliable statistic I saw on this, was 80%. And this was actually confirmed by Anna Khan, who is a pro-Sharia solicitor, and he makes quite a lot of money, I would imagine, from dealing with Sharia cases. And she confirmed the figure in an interview with Andrew Neil, I believe it was, in the Sunday Politics, that 80% of marriages, Muslim marriages in this country, are not registered under English law. And there's a reason for that. It's because they don't want to be governed by English law, and instead want to be governed by Sharia law. So the lady who is organising events and bringing more ex-Muslims into the party has been through all of this, and has who can give detailed information about life inside these closed communities and life inside the Sharia courts. So I'm delighted to have her on board, and indeed Mohammed Fiaz, who is also a great outspoken campaigner and a Christian convert. He has also joined the party and will be helping us out with a lot of these issues. But the voice here is so key. It is probably one of the most potent weapons we have against the left, because the left will throw all sorts of accusations at me. When I talk about these things, they'll throw all sorts of accusations at me. I'm a racist, even though I don't actually express any racist sentiments. Therefore, I'm hiding my racism, I'm pretending I only care about Islam, and I'm making up these things about Islam, and I'm misinterpreting this. When they hear it from ex-Muslims, it makes it really rather difficult to argue against them. They're certainly not racists and fascists, and they certainly don't hate Muslims, but they offer up a truth, an experience that I and other non-Muslims are not able to offer. And I will continue to support the growth of the ex-Muslim group within For Britain. And we will take this case to the left and to the media, and we will show them up for the liars that they are. You cannot pretend that a Pakistani ex-Muslim is driven by an underlying hatred of Pakistanis, or indeed of Muslims. These voices are key. They will educate us. They will teach us about the problems in this country, of many of whom I keep learning about new problems that are occurring inside closed Muslim communities in this country. And we will continue to learn. So we had a fantastic event in Blackburn on Sunday where we heard from several ex-Muslims, and their stories are heartbreaking and horrifying. We heard of people who've completely lost touch with their families. They've got no contact with their families. We heard of one man who couldn't, or because he'd left Islam, see his own mother on her deathbed. People kept away from their children, for example, for leaving Islam, and of course the ever real threat of violence. This is an atrocious situation to be happening here in 21st century Britain, and I believe it's one of the main keys that we have to unlock the truth about Sharia law in this country, and about how people are being treated in this country, and what we ought to do about it. So upcoming is next. I've got several interviews lined up, so look out for those. I'm doing pretty much an interview every day now. I have been contacted, and this is a really positive thing. I have been contacted by a couple of students, a couple of university students, who are keen to get active for Britain in their universities. So I'm going to try and set up some debates in those universities. There will no doubt, of course, be the usual screeching from left-wing groups, or indeed mainstream groups, which are effectively left-wing groups, who will go. It will be, of course, a catastrophe again if a bigot and a fascist like me is allowed to speak at a British university. But we will push this. I think this is really key. I want us to get into universities. I think there are a lot of students in universities who are very lonely and who are stuck with this leftist bullying from the National Union of Students, which we know is another hard left group, which like the National Union of Teachers. But we have got some connections now and some contacts from university students. And one of the things I really want to pursue is debates at universities. If they refuse to debate us, we'll make this public. We'll publicly challenge them. We will publicly offer our arguments and invite a response, which of course we won't get. If we have university authorities themselves not allowing us onto their premises, which has happened to me before. Ironically, when I was booked to speak about university censorship of critics of Islam, I was banned from some universities who wouldn't allow me to speak about the censorship imposed by universities, but that's another part of the mess we're in. We're really going to pursue this, and I'm really quite excited about that one. Schools as well. I want us to, I've given talks in schools in the past, in secondary schools. So if there are any teachers out there, perhaps, who might be able to arrange a talk at a school, I am available and would be absolutely delighted to come and talk about this and many issues at any school that will have us. Because this, as for Britain, will be for Britain party policy. Education needs to have the hard left removed from it. The National Union of Teachers in particular is an extreme left organisation. The kind who flatly refuse to teach British values to children in schools. They will instead teach international values, whatever they are. These groups need to be held to account. And one of the ways we will do this is simply to defy them, to push and push and push our way into universities and schools, whatever schools we can, to deliver these messages. And it's not just a message about immigration or about Islam. Or about the EU for that matter. It's about democracy itself. I want to talk about democracy itself. I want to talk to young people about democracy itself, because they're growing up essentially they've always grown up under an EU rule. I think the basic understanding of democracy has been lost. People have forgotten perhaps what it means, or maybe what it was like to have freedom of speech. I mean, it's about 20 years ago since I was at university, and it simply wasn't like this. So I think a lot of people simply don't know the importance of freedom of speech, the importance of accountable government, the importance of our sovereignty and our ability to remove those who mess up our countries and replace them with people who won't mess up our countries. These fundamentals are being lost, and children are not learning them, and nor are university students learning them. It's almost like it's a given now that some opinions are unacceptable. They're not. All opinions can be freely expressed in a democratic country, including in universities. And we will continue to pursue this. It is of the most paramount importance. It's the basis of everything. If we can't elect and remove our politicians, then we are simply servants, we are powerless, and that is exactly what's been happening to us with rapidly increasing pace over the last 10 years, even over the last 5 years. So the time is now that we start to change these things. For Britain will do this. I mentioned that I've had several attacks, personal attacks, have been coming in thick and fast, particularly from the leftists, of course. And I'm reminded of the wonderful quote from Margaret Thatcher, who said that when they attack you personally, it means they haven't got a single political argument left. Of course, they haven't got a single political argument, and that's exactly the cause of the attacks. So I'm actually buoyed by them. I consider them compliments. And as I said at the start, it's far better than being ignored, because if we're ignored, it means they're not worried about us. And the fact that they're attacking us means they are worried about us. And my confidence is growing. And with every obstacle we get around, my confidence is growing. My optimism is growing. And I am absolutely convinced that we can take this party in a way that no other party has for a very long time. Now, the House of Commons has been pretty much a stalemate for 100 years or so. It's been Labour, Tory, Labour, Tory, Labour, Tory. It's time then for a change. It's due for a change. And we, I believe, can be that change. I really do. We will have a massive movement of people behind us once we start to get out into the country. Oh, and I just want to make sure I point this out. I meant to say it at the start. Is that the money for your memberships is sitting untouched in an account. None of us are getting paid. It is sitting untouched in an account, ready for real campaigning to start next January. So I've had a question on that and I wanted to answer it. So just to reassure you, none of your money has been touched. It is sitting there waiting for campaigning to start next year. It will pay for the leafleting and the events and, of course, any costs we have for standing candidates. So I've pretty much run out of time. This hour actually really flies. Thank you all for tuning in. And please do share. Again, I'm told I don't remind you often enough to share this, so please do. And I'll be back in 2 weeks' time. So I know we're a bit out because I wasn't here last week, but we'll resume again from today with the fortnightly. So 2 weeks from today, I think it's the 13th of December, and I will have a special Christmas live stream. That doesn't mean, don't worry, I'm not going to be singing any Christmas carols or anything, and believe me, you don't want me to be singing any Christmas carols. But I will talk quite a bit about Christmas and about our culture, and about what is great about our culture, and about why we need to preserve it, and why indeed I believe Christmas and celebrating Christmas is very important to that. And I think, and it may be just me, but I think I see something of a revival from people in terms of our cultural traditions like Christmas. I think there's becoming a little bit of a backlash where people who were otherwise ambivalent about things like Christmas are now starting to take them a lot more seriously. I've seen this in Ireland as well. I'll just give you another example. As Ireland has completely transformed over the last 20 years or so, and I mean completely transformed. It's not a country I recognise at all from my childhood. I notice that as the Irish culture becomes more and more watered down, more and more Irish people are taking an interest in their culture. Things like Irish dancing and things which you used to do in schools, now people are putting their children into private classes, things like this. And the same, I think, will happen all over Europe, and I hope will happen all over Europe. That we're starting to really notice this erosion and this insult of European cultures, and are starting, I can already see a little bit of a revival, and I intend to make For Britain a part of that revival. So tune in 2 weeks' time, and I will do a special on Christmas and on Western culture, what is so great about it and why we need to preserve it, and what your role and what For Britain's role will be in preserving that great culture. So thanks again for tuning in. Share, and I'll no doubt be back on Twitter first thing tomorrow morning. Take care for now. See you in a couple of weeks.